During pregnancy, everyone tells you to avoid sushi, alcohol and soft cheese. But what about the foods that no one warns you about? Today's video is all about the foods that I'm avoiding during pregnancy. Not the usual checklist, but things that really surprised me and that a lot of people don't know that it can be risky during pregnancy. So if you're expecting or trying to conceive, stick around because these might surprise you too. So first up, we've got pineapple. Yes, that tropical, juicy, healthy-looking fruits. Eating a small amount of pineapple is usually safe, but if you're eating a large quantity of pineapple, it can be risky, especially in early pregnancy. Apparently, pineapple contains a sort of enzyme that can soften the cervix and potentially trigger mild contraction. So it's not completely banned, but just to be on the safe side, I personally cut back during my first trimester. And I see a lot of pregnant women that actually consume pineapple on purpose at the very end of the pregnancy for that same reason, because it softened the cervix. But I heard that you need to really have a large amount in order for it to actually work. Next is papaya, particularly if it's unripe or semi-ripe. In my culture, it's actually known as something to avoid during pregnancy because it contains latex, which may cause uterine contractions and miscarriage in some cases. The good news is ripe papaya is actually considered safe. However, I personally decided to completely avoid it just to not take any risk. Next, we got aloe vera. I used to really love aloe drinks, but since I'm pregnant, I'm literally Googling every single food that I eat just to make sure it's pregnancy safe, and it turns out it's not so safe to consume aloe vera. So this one as well contains some kind of latex, and it can cause uterine spasms, and it can also drop your sugar level. So aloe drinks, not ideal when you're trying to grow a little human. This one really hurt my sweet tooth. Homemade desserts, especially if it contains raw eggs or unpasteurized cream. Sometimes homemade desserts are also undercooked. We don't always realize these things. So for example, one of my favorite desserts is ice cream, but a lot of them contain raw eggs. You'd think that the homemade would actually be better to consume, but in reality it's not, because if they use raw eggs, for example, the bacteria will still be kind of like actively there. Another dessert that I really like is mousse, like chocolate mousse. I really like that, but this again, they use raw eggs to make this. It's just, you don't always think about like the ingredients and like how they make these desserts. So be careful, because things like cookie dough or even some frostings can put you at risk for salmonella or listeria. Now, this one really surprised me. You'd think that liver is actually very nutritious and therefore very good for pregnancy, but you should actually take it off the menu. The reason's because liver contains super high levels of vitamin A called retinol, and if you consume too much of that vitamin, it can be toxic for your baby and cause developmental issues. So even though it's full of iron, try to get yours from safer sources. So the next food that I'm avoiding is something that I don't usually like, but I've got an infusion which contains licorice. And because obviously I Google everything to check if it's pregnancy safe, I found out that it's actually not. Black licorice in particular, apparently if you have too much of it, it can impact your baby's brain development. There's actually a lot of infusions and teas that contain licorice, so make sure you check the labels. The last thing that I'm avoiding during pregnancy is Coke. Now, I know a lot of women that actually drink Coke because it helps with the morning sickness. Fizzy drinks are not the best for your baby and for yourself during pregnancy, and especially Coke. I think it's probably the worst soda you could ever drink during pregnancy. It's very high in caffeine, it's very high in sugar. I actually love Coke. I do crave it sometimes, but I actually lump it together with alcohol. So that's it for today. Let me know in the comments if there's any other foods that are risky during pregnancy and that might be less obvious, that people don't talk about, or if there's any food you've decided to avoid for any particular reasons. Anything that I didn't mention, feel free to share. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked the video. And if you're interested in pregnancy content, I'm trying my best to post once a week on this channel. So don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you soon.